Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just One Man's Opinion. Excuse the hair. It's been a crazy week, if you will, at work. As you all know, NFL Wildcard Weekend, the playoffs, if you will, it kicks off today. Alright, kicks off today. And so I just wanted to go ahead and start to put my narrative on it. I'm going to be picking the games. That's going to be a later video, or I should say later videos, where I'm picking the games, the individual games, and giving you my analysis on them. Right now, however, I want to give you my favorites to come out of each conference, to represent each conference in the Super Bowl, as well as my Super Bowl pick for this year's playoffs. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. On the AFC, in the AFC conference, I thought about this long and hard. I'm giving a slight edge to the Pittsburgh Steelers. A slight edge to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, I know that the Patriots have been looking well. I know the Patriots won that matchup. But I'm giving the Steelers the slight edge. The main reason is that when I just look at the Pittsburgh Steelers from a personnel standpoint, all right, I think they have the best personnel in the AFC Conference. They have the best personnel in the AFC Conference. It starts first and foremost with the three Bs. All right, you have Big Ben Roethlisberger, a two-time Super Bowl champ. The playoff experience is there. This man knows what it takes to get onto that playoff grind, right? So you got Big Ben Roethlisberger, who, by the way, that Big Ben is nothing to sneeze at. You're talking about one of the only quarterbacks, all right, outside of maybe Joe Flacco, you can make an argument, that has really competed with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as far as representing the AFC Conference in Super Bowls. All right, this man has 3 appearances, 2 wins. He knows what it takes to get it done. Definitely a Steeler great for sure. All right, and then you have arguably the best wide receiver and running back in the game, 2 first-team All-Pros this year in Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. I think that the offensive weapons that they have is second to none. I think that Antonio Brown is going to be 80% to 100% come the division round when they play their first game in the playoffs. I think that's a heck of a lot better than most other wide receivers out there, for sure. Antonio Brown at 80% is better than most wide receivers in the league, period, point blank. That's just that. You also got to factor in the fact that they have David DeCastro as right guard on the offensive line, first-team All-Pro, as well as Cam Hayward, defensive lineman, you know, on the defensive side of the football. So the personnel standpoint, I think they have the best personnel in the AFC. When you take into account the competition, they are going to be facing either the Jaguars, the Titans, or the Kansas City Chiefs in the division card round. And I think that, or better yet, I'm just going to say it, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the overwhelming favorites to win any of those matchups. I acknowledge that the Jaguars can give them some trouble. At the end of the day, you got to come down on either side, and the side I'm coming down on is the Steelers. I think the Steelers are going to win that matchup. I just don't have that much faith in Blake Bortles. Last but not least, is really the Patriots, right? Who do you think is going to win between the Patriots and the Steelers? The Patriots have traditionally owned the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just think that the fact of the matter is, losing in that fashion, I think that the Steelers have a huge chip on their shoulder, even going into Foxborough. I think the James Harrison situation is also going to be a motivational edge to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Antonio Brown is likely, hopefully, God willing, going to be healthy for the entirety of the game. That right there is enough for me to give the Pittsburgh Steelers the edge, even going to Foxborough. I think they represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. All right. As far as my NFC favorite, okay, my NFC favorite is the Vikings. Full disclosure, I am a huge Vikings fan. I've been a huge Vikings fan since 1998. That's when my favorite college player at the time was drafted to the Minnesota Vikings one of the greatest rookie performances of all time. If you don't know who I'm talking about, that's another video for another day. But the Minnesota Vikings are my NFC favorite. They're my favorite to come out of the NFC and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. If you follow me on Facebook and you paid attention to my post, you know that at the beginning of the season, I picked the New Orleans Saints to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. My opinion has changed. I didn't have the Vikings even in the playoffs at the beginning, but I've been pleasantly surprised. I've been pleasantly surprised about how well they played, and I just want to point out a couple of things. All right, let me give you guys 3 reasons why the Vikings are the favorite to come out of the NFC and why they, quite frankly, should be your favorite to win the Super Bowl. Okay, let's look at the offense. Okay, let's look at the offense. They're top 10 in scoring offense. Okay, they're 4th in the league as far as big rushing plays over 20 yards. All right, they're tied number 7 in the league as far as, you know, scoring on runs. All right, they have the number 7 rushing attack in the league, top 10. They're number 2 in completion percentage. The Vikings are number 3 on 3rd down conversions. That's a decent offense. That's a decent offense right there. They're not horrible. They're not bad. They're not, you know, they don't stink. That is a decent, you know, offense. Decent offense. Maybe not all-time great, but it's decent, okay? Let's talk about the quarterback play in Minnesota. And this is where the Minnesota Vikings are hugely underrated. The Minnesota Vikings have the most efficient quarterback play in the playoffs, period. I'm not talking about career accomplishments. I'm not saying Case Keenum or the quarterbacking core in Minnesota Vikings is necessarily, you know, career-wise better than Tom Brady in New England. That's not what I'm saying at all. This is a what have you done for me lately league. And as far as this season is concerned, the Minnesota Vikings have the best quarterback play. I just want to point out that in terms of QBR, which is I think is the better stat to judge quarterbacks of versus passer rating, in terms of QBR, all right, the number 2 quarterback in QBR this season behind Carson Wentz is Case Keenum. Case Keenum for the Minnesota Vikings, all right? Carson Wentz is injured. So the top quarterback in QBR in the playoffs, that's healthy, that's going to be playing this playoffs, is Case Keenum. That's the Minnesota Vikings, period. All right? I just want to take that a step further and point out a couple of things, okay? If you look at the top 32 QBR performances this year, okay? 32, that's how many performances we had where a quarterback, had a QBR rating of 90 and above, okay? This is on a scale of 0 to 100. 32 times a quarterback had a QBR performance of 90 and above this year, okay? If you analyze the quarterbacks or the teams on that list of 32 performances, the Minnesota Vikings own 4 of them, all right? 3 of them belong to Case Keenum, 2 of them belong to Sam Bradford, all right? Minnesota Vikings own 4 of them, okay? That should let you know that our quarterback play, it translates. Whether it's Case Keenum that's going to be in the lineup or Sam Bradford, I don't know, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he's practicing again with the team now. Case Keenum's going to start, you know, barring some unfortunate event. But should we need to call on Sam Bradford, guess what? The Minnesota Vikings quarterback play has been the most efficient in the NFL. No team has 4. Minnesota Vikings has 4. If you look at the other teams, all right, who have 3 performances, 90 and above on the QBR rating, that's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs with 3, the Dallas Cowboys with 3, the Philadelphia Eagles with 3, all right, and the Houston Texans with 3. Well, Houston and Dallas, they're not in the playoffs, all right? Kansas City Chiefs is in the AFC, and as I just mentioned, Carson Wentz, who was responsible for all 3 of Philadelphia Eagles' performances, he's not in the playoffs. He's not in the playoffs. He's injured. So that's one standpoint to look at it. We could take it a step further, and we could look at the teams that have two performances in that top 32. All right, New England has 2. Atlanta, Jacksonville Jaguars, the Los Angeles Rams, Los Angeles Chargers, and the San Francisco 49ers. All right, New England and Jacksonville, they're in the AFC. Atlanta and the Rams, they play each other today. So that's going to be 1 quarterback already nixed. All right, the Minnesota Vikings has to play only 1 quarterback en route to the Super Bowl that has more than one performance of QBR of 90 plus. Only one. All right, that's by far a fortuitous path for the Minnesota Vikings. And again, the most efficient quarterback play belonged to the Vikings. If you look at the top 10 quarterback performances this year in terms of QBR, all right, and this is even more telling. In terms of QBR, guess what? The Minnesota Vikings own 3 of the top 10 quarterback performances in terms of QBR this season. No other team, not New England, not Atlanta, not the Rams, no other team appeared in the top 10 more than once this season. All right, the quarterback play is hugely underrated in Minnesota. The Vikings have the most efficient quarterback play this postseason, period. All right, that's number one. Number two, the Vikings defense. The Vikings have hands down the best defense in the NFL this year. They have the best defense in the playoffs. It's not Jacksonville, it's not the Rams, it's the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, I just want to go ahead and go down this list. Okay, the Vikings are tied for number 2, okay, against big play rushing, against big plays in the rushing game. They're tied for number 2. All right, they are tied for number 9 against, as far as rushing touchdowns are concerned, defending against rushing scores. They're tied for number 9. All right, they are number 2 in defense in terms of rush yards. They're number 3 in defense in terms of quarterback pass rating. All right, they are number 1 against big plays in the passing game. They're number 2 as far as defending against the passing yards. They're number 1 against, passing touchdowns. They're number 1. The Minnesota Vikings are the number 1 defense on third down. They're the number 1 defense as far as yards per game, and the Minnesota Vikings are the number 1 scoring defense. Hands down, they're the best defense in the NFL. No other defensive unit can stay the same. If you factor in those 2 things, all right, great, arguably all-time great defensive personnel, defensive unit, you combine that with a decent offense and the most efficient quarterback play in the NFL, all right, you combine those 3 things with the fact that the Minnesota Vikings are likely going to have home field advantage throughout this entire playoffs. They have home field advantage in the division round, okay? As far as the NFC Conference Championship, if the Vikings make it that far, I'm certainly not picking the Eagles with all their struggles recently to make it to the NFC Championship. That means the Vikings will have home field in that game. And when they go to the Super Bowl, I'm saying when, but if they go to the Super Bowl is in Minnesota this year, where they will again have home field advantage. The Vikings are not only my favorite to come out of the NFC, they're my favorite to win the Super Bowl. This is the Vikings year. This is the Vikings year. This year to be the first team to host the Super Bowl, and I'm picking them to win. I'm picking Vikings over the Steelers come February 4th in Minnesota. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. If you disagree, let me know. Definitely comment. Let's talk about it. Just remember that this is just one man's opinion, and I'll see you guys next time.